Alright, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today and our brothers here are very qualified people. We are going to be diving deep into the realm of Michael Behe and his observations in nature and evolution as a whole. So, as you know, we will be talking and explaining Michael Behe's thoughts and responses and elaborating it thoroughly with you viewers so you can get on our level, as that might be a bit hard for you guys, but I think a little bit of help will work for you. Alright, so let's begin. Before we begin though, let us name our three other participants. The first one being Ben DeVries. He is a very, how do I say it? He's very fond of Michael Behe and has read his books. Ben, can you tell us what books you've read of him?
He's just like a wonderful speaker, and he's so insightful on Darwin and his philosophies. Like, for example, Darwin's Black Box. It's just a brilliant masterpiece of work. I mean, it doesn't get better than that.
That's true. And we have Abraham here, who's a self-proclaimed theorist and physicist, and he has profound insights in Michael Behe and his theories. And I feel like he might have some challenges today's video. So Abe, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Abraham Moore. I'm also a biochemist, same field as Michael Behe, so I think I can offer some pretty good input in this video. And I really think that Michael Behe, he really is an esteemed scientist in the field of biochemistry, and definitely be interesting to see what he says in relation to his arguments, for the
like this is safe space here. Like we can disagree with Michael Behe, or we can agree with him. It's like safe space and like have evidence and stuff like that. And like it's really interesting. Like I really love his work. And Philip, the last guy, can you tell us more about yourself and why your camera's not on?
My camera's actually broken right now, so hopefully in the next podcast we can get that to work. I'm a theoretical physicist, and I work in the field of quantum physics and theoretical.
Mm-hmm.
I'm currently on track to be an engineer, so I do dabble in the bits of biochemistry and all this, and I find this very interesting about how we came to be how we are, and the whole God argument, how Michael Behe intervenes with that, and many Christians about their beliefs. So I just find this incredibly interesting, and I can't wait to see what he has to say.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Alright, so now that you viewers have been introduced to all of us, it's now time for us to start the video. We'll pause what we think are important times to talk and discuss. And it's a safe space out here, so we don't have to all have the same view or beliefs on the topic. So I think it'll provide an interesting discussion, especially since we have lots of geniuses and people with big knowledge in this call and profound understanding. So let's get into it.
Michael Behe, I am so glad to meet you, and thank you for agreeing to do this. I just read your book, The Edge of Evolution, from 2007, and I found it absolutely shattering. I mean, this is a very important book. So I just wanted to go back and forth with you for a little while to get a sense of what your intent with this book was, and ask you a few questions and just allow this book to have the wide airing that it deserves. So thank you.
Yeah, sure. Sounds great to me. It's nice to be with you. I've never been on a vlogging heads before, so should be fun.
So what is the basic premise of the Edge of Evolution? What do you mean by the Edge of Evolution?
Well, the edge of evolution is meant to imply what Darwinian processes can do and what they might not be able to do. I mean, I think it's clear. I certainly think that Darwinian processes can explain a lot of things like antibiotic resistance and maybe even, say, the white fur of a polar bear. And
Alright, so what he said there, I think what he said there is very crucial into understanding, as he described the edge, like what is the edge of evolution, and he's saying like Darwin. Yep.
Yeah, I like the book of evolution, Edge of Evolution. We're talking about it right now, but I like the fact that Michael Behe just brought up the polar bear. well, that's one of his good arguments, is that we can adapt by breaking down and having small changes, like fur changing. That's how some evolution, like quote unquote evolution, works. But we can have major changes, like bacteria to humans. So.
Yeah,
It's a solid argument. I like that.
yeah, as well as he said that like evolution isn't really evolution in terms of like fur color. What you said is not adding on to it, but instead taking away certain genes and like phenotypes. So I agree with that. And it's also like how he explains it so easily. Like he says that the edge of evolution is like what Darwinism can't do, but also what Darwinism can explain. So it's not like Michael Behe is like completely against Darwinism. So I really respect the man for having an open mind, and he's pretty old, so like I think he has a lot of expertise in this area. So let's continue. Do you guys have anything to add on, or should we play it on?
Should I listen to more?
No more.
Yeah.
All right.
and things like that. I think most people would agree with that, but there are many things where you don't know if this random change plus natural selection process is going to be able to cut the mustard, so to speak. And so the point of the edge of evolution is, well, do we have any data? Do we have any?
What?
Tasha, you muted. You muted your.
Yeah, I mute myself, and then I'll unmute when we're gonna talk.
I can't hear. Try to
Oh, you can't hear the thing, bro.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I won't mute.
Yeah.
Any studies that will actually help us to decide what Darwinism can do and what it can't do. And I kind of dubbed that the edge of evolution.
Exactly. And one of the basic premises of the book, and I want to get these premises out of the way first before we get to the question part, is that the Darwinian idea that there's
Yes,
I
Philip?
like how he's I like how he's clarifying here that he's not just pushing all of Darwinism away.
Mm-hmm.
He's just saying that some of it can happen, but like the whole thing isn't true.
Yeah, like Darwinism can't explain the fullness of like evolution and
The
how.
scale of what's happening.
Yeah, like the
It's just so
gaps.
complex. Like,
Cool.
Yeah, like student will learn about irreducible.
common descent, that all the world's creatures have evolutionary relationships and develop from one another in some way, is clear, but that the problem is the notion that we have the difference between a skunk and an okapi and a tyrannosaurus, all based on random mutation, that random mutation could have created things like this. And go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say that's exactly right. Most people don't realize it, but Darwin's claim to fame wasn't just to suggest evolution in the sense of plain old common descent. His addition was the idea that this could happen completely without any mind or any guidance behind it. No plan, no design, nothing. Random mutation plus natural selection. So that things kind of, so that life forms would just kind of blow with the wind, in a sense. Nothing directional. The problem with Darwin's theory for many people, certainly myself, is that its mechanism, random mutation plus natural selection, just doesn't seem like it can get the job done.
Right, and one of the most interesting arguments in your book, and it bore careful reading, was that you can look at, say, malaria, how the malaria parasite has evolved. And malaria basically can beat our antidotes like chloroquine if there are many generations, many more generations than there can possibly have been for the evolution, say, of mammals, because these organisms are so numerous. And the way it does this is with two mutations that happen at the same time, correct me if I'm wrong, and the chances of that happening are so infinitesimal and take so many generations, and that's about all that you can see when we actually watch organisms undergoing random mutation, rather than these magnificent things.
Yes, Philip?
I think this is where we get to the part of the fundamentals of Michael Behe's argument and like how the math works for how just physically impossible it is to get from that bacteria to all the way to human.
Oh yeah.
I think in this video, as we keep on going, I think they'll talk about the time scale of how long this would actually take.
Yeah.
It's not possible because due to how old the Earth is, it would take more time than the Earth's been around. So
That's true. How genetic mutations only occur over multiple generations of life, and how it takes us longer to reproduce than bacteria and smaller organisms do as well.
I think they might get into the whale thing too, like the
Oh yeah,
reproduction system. Yeah.
I like how Michael Behe puts into perspective that Darwin thinks things could just be random, but it's not possible. Like, the complexity of it all.
Yeah, like, and how
like the irreducible complexity that you see in like modern organisms, you really can't just explain it all by just like random evolution. I mean, like it can be genetic mutation. You already destroyed the argument. You already said, oh, it would take billions of years for bacteria to evolve these things. So obviously, it makes Darwin's argument not that credible at all.
yeah, as well as like what Philip said, like later in the video we're gonna see like homologous and like other structures that we can see like in animal bone structures. So let's continue with the video.
Things such as giraffes or even new protein combinations emerging. So your idea is that when we actually try to see random mutation happening, we don't really see very much. Is that a correct interpretation?
Yeah, that's right. The big problem with Darwin's theory and evolution in general was that, you know, it was supposed to take so long and so there was supposed to require so many generations of organisms and so many numbers of organisms that we wouldn't be able to see it within our lifetime, or even within recorded history. But in the past 20, 30 years, a lot of scientists have become interested in trying to do evolutionary studies on microorganisms, which you can grow in your laboratory in enormous numbers, or interested in microorganisms in nature, of which there are vastly more than, say, the large animals that we're used to thinking about that ever existed in history. So a fair test of evolution, instead of requiring large amounts of time, is to use large numbers of organisms like malaria, which is a little single-celled creature which causes sickness in humans, and see what they're able to do in tens of thousands of generations. And if they can't do very much, then we can easily say that, well, we won't be able to do more than that with fewer organisms, such as large animals, such as humans or skunks or dinosaurs or whatever. Something else must be causing those changes.
Exactly. And what's interesting is that every 10 minutes there seems to be a book that comes out that you find in the science section at the store that purports to show that the sorts of questions that you're raising have been answered, that we've got it all figured out, how you get from an amoeba to Tom DeLay, that we understand this.
We pause here real quick?
Yeah. I was about to pause there.
Yeah, I'd just like to say how true this is. Like, if you go into the real world and talk to people who are not really indulged in this area.
Yeah, like surface level, I get what you mean.
Yeah. What they just came out of high school with. They never really question evolution, and they take it as fact other than theory. And it would surprise them a lot just to see even you argue about.
Well, a lot of them just shout lies. Like, they don't even take into consideration like what Michael Behe has said. They'd rather just go with the easy answer, easy lie, instead of going with the interesting and insightful truth. That like Michael Behe has just powerful, like, it's just amazing.
Yeah, and like,
they want to silence the truth. That's really what it's all about. They want to silence the truth.
Yeah, like what he just said about how books being released in like the libraries and stuff like that, claiming to have everything figured out and having all the answers, when in reality, if you look deeper in, like the average Joe isn't gonna know about the time period of all the calculations of probability of what the common Darwinists think. I think that it brings up a good point in saying how it's kind of like, if you're like a regular person, you're going to want to accept that truth rather than contest it, because it's easier just to accept the truth and like kind of fit into society. And I just think that like when you think deeper, like what Michael Behe has done here, you can like try to create your own gaps try to try to fill in the gaps of Darwinist theory. So I think that's like really respectable, and it's like how many years of like hard work that would actually take, which is why I don't think a lot of people do it, is because of the time and effort it would take for like a person to try to figure out like the origins of human life on their own. It's pretty complex.
And so there's like Sean Carroll's book, but Endless Forms Most Beautiful, and then there's the one by the two guys whose name I forget. One of them's named Mark, The Plausibility of Life. These books always seem to purport to show how these sorts of things actually work. And what they'll show is that there is a gene or a set of genes that program for body segments or program for body parts, and that if you alter one of these genes, then you can make a leg grow out of something's head or something like that. And I have always waited for those books to prove to me that everything's been figured out. And I don't go into them skeptically, but they never really quite explain how you get from the amoeba to the triceratops. Why would you say that they don't? How come those books don't cinch the case?
Well, frankly, because it's we don't know. They think you have to separate our knowledge of how life works, of which we've learned an enormous amount in the past 50 years, learned about DNA and genes and other things, from the question of how life originated or how life changed over time. We know very, very little of that, and a lot of people, including many good scientists like Carroll and Kirshner and others.
Yep.
I like what Michael Behe just said. How much we have developed in the last 50 years when it comes to DNA and genetics. Back then, Darwin had a very, very, very limited knowledge and just
The technology was just so primitive compared to now.
Yeah, especially with AI, like the things you're able to do with AI is just like crazy.
I don't know how that relates to.
That's a really good point.
I don't really know how that relates to the topic, but
AI does relate to the topic.
AI in the field of biochemistry, even relating to cyborgs. I mean, there's interesting things you can do.
Could you give an example?
okay. Let's go back to. Understanding.
No. I understand what Abraham's saying.
Yeah.
Like AI is used to like, it's used to like figure out like CRISPR, like gene editing, stuff like that. Like AI is used to like look through the like all the different like the codecs like AAC, stuff like that, all the way down the line, and it uses that and it tries to like use all different combinations and predict what the combinations will lead to outcomes. And instead of scientists having to do that, it is like AI can do that for us at a much more efficient pace. So I understand what Abe's saying. Like AI is made.
What Abe was trying to say.
Yeah, like AI made like a huge, like a leap in like knowledge and understanding of like the fundamentals of life.
Yeah, for sure.
Back to what Michael Behe was saying. But I don't think Darwin, in my personal opinion, I don't think with Michael Behe's knowledge and all the knowledge right now we have resources. I don't think Darwin would have pushed through with this evolution theory. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, since
like imagine if Darwin in the 1800s read Michael Behe's book, like The Edge of Evolution. Like how much that would change things,
That's true. We're gonna put it at 1.5 times speed because we're getting close to time. So,
Well, let's give it for consideration. Like, what book would you suggest you read?
For a beginner, like Michael Behe, he's a profound author, but I think that you can't really just dive into, like, you can't really fully enjoy the book if you are like surface level knowledge of like the topic.
I'd say read the high school books, read all the Darwinism propaganda books they have. Just read them, but also read the other side of the story.
I think like a good starter book would be Darwin Devolves, because it just kind of goes into the retrospect of all of the things and just goes into how Darwin is wrong, and
Yeah.
maybe after that, the Edge of Evolution.
There's a thing there. I don't think he's wrong. But he is
Well-
wrong, but in some parts he isn't wrong.
Well, yeah, of course, but he's just wrong in like the majority of his like
Well,
more advanced beliefs.
I want to say he's wrong in the sense where he wants to be wrong. Like, he's just a guy trying to find truth with limited resources. So, like, can we say Darwin's a bad guy? No, but I think that if he was given the resources nowadays, he would have come to a similar conclusion as, like, Michael Behe.
So would you say like Darwin is like comparable to Michael Behe?
I'd say
Like
yes,
Michael Behe
in a
wasn't like
sense.
Darwin?
Yeah, I'd say in a similar sense because, like, they both have a strong drive for, like, understanding their origins, and I think it's really respectable. Like there are a few people I know in life that are like that. Like, one captain guy, he shows like a strong passion for evolution, and it's just like it's really
Yeah, I've spoken to him one time. It's just like, what is his name?
He has such a strong will to find out about his origins.
It starts with an A, but like, I'm sorry, I can't remember right now. But he was just had an extreme drive and like grasp for the information of what Michael Behe was saying.
Yeah.
I
Just
call
like-
him mini,
like-
I would, you know, I call him Mini Behe.
yeah, that's true. Like, I call him
He's like-
I call him Captain because he's like Captain Behe or like Michael Behe Captain. Like, it's just because like he's like
It's
the he's like the
because he's like
a ship leader.
on the verge of a new discovery. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
He's
yeah, like-
leading
yeah,
the search for
leading the fleet. Yeah, I understand.
Well, the way I think of it is in like in terms of influential figures, it goes Darwin, Michael Behe, Captain. Because
Yeah, I think Captain's more underground right now.
Influential figures in the frame of evolutionary theory.
Yeah,
just in like the timeline, you know.
yeah,
He's
Captain
become
Captain
so-
Straight
Let's
is
head back
pretty
to- let's
pretty
get back onto
knowledgeable.
the video. Let's get back onto the video.
Yeah,
Right now, he's like laying the groundwork for future movement. You know
that's
what I mean?
true.
So people don't really know
Okay,
about him.
okay, let's just.
Guys, hopefully in the future, audience out there listening, we'll have our own Zoom meeting with Captain Stray himself, or Captain Behe, as we like to call him. And hopefully he accepts. Like, he's not really free, but I think he'll make an
He's
exception
like
for
camera
us.
shy.
Yeah, he is a busy
I
man.
mean, he's
Do
busy
you
with
know what?
his-
You know what? Do you know what would be crazy?
What?
If we got the Michael Behe to be on this podcast.
That is true. Our goal is to
Michael
get the
Behe, Michael Behe, if you want to come on,
Michael Behe. If you're seeing this,
email.
email. I'll put a link in the description. We would really look forward to discussing.
Let's hop in a Zoom meeting. We can talk for however you want.
Yeah, we've all read. Who here's read Edge of Evolution?
I can't raise my hand, but I do. I'll raise it on the
All right. So I think that's kind of like the fundamentals, but I think
Let's head back into the video.
Yeah.
We need to, yeah.
yeah. All right. Let's not pause anymore until we're a good way through the video.
Others get confused. They think because they see a couple of different organisms that have similarities, and then they can imagine it in their heads, moving some things around, and it wouldn't be any problem whatsoever. But they confuse what's going on in their own heads with what's going on in nature. And I think that's what's important about the edge of evolution, is because it really brings to the table data that's accumulated in the past decade or so about what random mutation and natural selection can actually do out in the wild, in nature. And as I read in the book, it's pretty small. As you alluded to, malaria, which is the major case that I look at in the book, grows in enormous numbers in the world. There are, in one infected person with malaria, there are about 1 trillion little organisms swimming around. 1 trillion is something like 100 times the number of humans on the whole Earth.
Inconceivable.
And there's something like 1 billion people in the world get malaria every year. So there's 10 to the 20th, 10 to the 21st astronomical numbers of these things. And we've challenged them in the past couple of decades with drugs, antibiotics, and they have been able to develop resistance to antibiotics. But when you go and ask yourself, well, what did they do? Did they develop some new sophisticated molecular machinery, like the other molecular machines that are in the cell? And it turns out they make a few scratches, so to speak, on pre-existing machines, and that's barely enough to survive the drugs.
Exactly.
So they come up with these minuscule results. I think I say in the book that the Darwinian elephant labored mightily and gave birth to a gnat. And the important thing is that this is observational data. It does not depend on somebody's imagination, like Professor Carroll's imagination or other Darwinian scientists who write their books. They might think that some of these transitions would be easy, but we have absolutely no experimental or observational evidence to conclude that.
Yeah, and one more thing. My epiphany on this, when I remember I was sitting on a bed in a bed and breakfast looking out to sea and reading the chapter on proteins. That's when I realized, goodness gracious, something is really different from from a certain skeptical, call it quote-unquote bright, a la Richard Dawkins, way of looking at the world. I thought, really, there is something going on. Talk about proteins and the way that they match or don't. This is something really important for people to realize in terms of figuring out how random mutation could even create a cell. Proteins are pretty weird, aren't they?
Well, they are weird in a sense. They're of course elegant too. What the problem is, most lay people, think of the cell as kind of a squishy glob of Jello or something. But what modern science has showed that it's actually filled with these biological machines, which are composed mostly of things called proteins. And again, most people think of proteins as something to eat, but they're not. They're actually they're strings of chemicals called amino acids, which are put together. And as an analogy, you can think of the amino acids as letters. And when you put letters together in the right way, they can spell out words and sentences and so on. But if you put them together in the wrong way, they don't spell anything. They convey no meaning.
And proteins make things happen by sticking to each other, by matching.
Yeah, that's right. They're actually a lot more exotic than letters. They've got chemical properties where they have regions that are positively charged or negatively charged, and those regions can attract each other. And another region which might be like kind of an oily region, and another one which is kind of like salt, which likes to be dissolved in water. And all of these things make a string of amino acids fold up on itself in a particular way so that it assumes a shape like a machine. So suppose you had a piece of metal on the floor and it had little magnets on it, the north side pointing up on some and the south side pointing up on others. And all of a sudden it started to fold itself up and it formed scissors. And now you can use this folded up metal as a piece of scissors, but when it was unfolded on the floor, you could not do that. Well, proteins are like that. They form much more sophisticated machinery than scissors. They can do very exotic chemical reactions. They can build things in your body. The retina in your eye is composed of a protein called rhodopsin, which interacts with light and helps send a signal onto your brain to start vision. And the blood contains a protein called hemoglobin, which binds oxygen and delivers it to tissue. So proteins it's like going into Home Depot and finding all of these machines, all of these tools around. Well, there are thousands and thousands of different proteins in your body. And because of their particular shapes, they can do all these different jobs.
And in any given cell, there are so very many proteins all jangling around in this blob, and they're somehow directed by DNA and RNA to create chemicals. They're just jangling around in this fluid, and they find one another, and the result is you and me doing this. And that's how evolution has happened. And yet, we're supposed to think that there's nothing miraculous about this process.
Yeah, it seems pretty easy to me.
And it's fun to imagine it happening kind of step by step, but how this would go on. And so clearly, it's difficult to avoid a sense, and I think anybody, no matter how skeptical about higher beings is, it's difficult to avoid there being at least an illusion of teleology here. There seems to be something directing this, that it can't be completely random. Yeah. Because, for example, a Sean Carroll cannot tell you how these jangling bags of proteins and endoplasmic reticulum, etc., came together to create a leg in the first place. It's one thing to be able to figure out how a leg is placed in one place as opposed to another, but how did something even start to have the particular detailed leg in question, and how does that leg go from the fly's leg to our leg, and things like that. And so, it seems that, and this is something that you seem to understandably pull back from getting too specific about in the book, but correct me if I'm wrong, it would seem to me that your idea is that random mutation alone cannot explain these things, and that there must have been some sort of intelligent designer, and that intelligent designer, I presume, would be God, right?
Well, I certainly think so. I'm a run-of-the-mill Christian, but...
I'd say we have to pause there, because that's really profound, because we don't think Michael Behe, he's not an atheist. This evolution is just it's just a byproduct of God. God is the one that is the creator of all things. He allowed it to.
I like how he tries to keep religion and just the truth away from each other. He doesn't just say, oh, because Christianity is right, that's why it is the way it is. He goes into detail on why there must be a creator.
Yeah.
I think that since he's a Catholic, I think he wants to appeal to the atheist perspective and not get into the religious thing. I think he wants to open it. I think he wants to open the door to atheists of a creator, and they can pick their religion.
I think he's just trying to have no bias.
Yeah, I think from his perspective, the most logical answer would be a God. It doesn't matter whether he's Christian, or any religion at all. He could be agnostic or something like that.
I think he's trying to put in a very scientific perspective. You know what I mean? Putting aside all notions of God, or obviously God but that's what he believes in. But any notion of like religion and stuff, he's basically trying to make a scientific argument for intelligent design.
Yeah.
Which doesn't really involve religion.
Yeah, because if you don't believe in intelligent design, like how can you believe edge of evolution and like stuff like that? Like it's impossible if you don't have an intelligent designer. Everything that we're seeing around us is extremely unlikely.
Yeah, and I would say impossible.
Let's head back into the video.
Well, technically impossible, basically.
In the book, I try to act as, I'm a scientist, and the scientific evidence points to design. It doesn't, there's no signature on the molecular machinery saying who did it. And if somebody else wants to think that it was a space alien or something exotic, well, they're free to do it. The structure of the molecular machines doesn't force you to believe one versus the other. But certainly, I think, and most, theists will think that God is a major candidate for the role of designer.
Well, I will definitely say that in reading your book, I came closer than I ever have at the age of 43 to believing in God. I, quite frankly, do not and never have, and think the world is a marvelous place anyway. And I never imagined that anybody could even begin to convince me that there was such a thing. Reading your book, I thought to myself, I can't think of what there would be that would create this kind of order out of chaos. And I suspect that many people, if they actually read the book all the way through, would have the same response. But the fact is, and I say this with full respect for your religious beliefs, I don't want to believe in God. I don't like change. And so...
and I never claim, and certainly don't now, that this is, that I have some sort of logical proof for design and so on. But with science, you got to go with the evidence, where the evidence is pointing. And in my mind, it's clearly pointing strongly to design. Who knows? You can never tell in science what's coming down the pipe. But right now, it sure looks this way to me, that that things look strongly as if they were designed. And Darwinian claims notwithstanding, we have no idea how such elegant complexity could have come about without design. So why don't we make that conclusion, or at least as a hypothesis, and go from there?
It's so utterly fascinating. And yet I remember when Darwin's Black Box came out, I grabbed it, I was fascinated by this, it opened my eyes, and I had a scientist friend, eminent one, I will not name them or even give their gender, but I had that scientist over to dinner, and when I gave that scientist your book and said, have you read this one, that scientist literally, and they, yes, singular they, were being kind of theatrical, but they literally threw it across the room. They just could not entertain this book, and it was gaining a reputation.
Yeah, like I say that's like that's like what most humans are like now. Like what this guy...
Yeah, some people just can't handle the truth.
Yeah, like this guy on the left right here, he was humble enough to admit that he doesn't want change. Like people do not want change. Like he was an atheist, he didn't believe in God. But after reading Darwin's Black Box, he thinks that it's like it's not logical or reasonable to believe that there isn't a God. Like once reading the Black Box, but it's like when he gave it to his scientific friend, they just completely could not handle it, did not even give the book a try, and just threw it across the room. And it shows like how even though as humans...
I think people don't want to change because they want to have their freedom, do whatever they want.
And these people are just closed in, they're conditioned all their lives to not want, to not hear other opinions about this.
Yeah, like a growth...
They're intimidated by changing the mindset.
Yeah, like they don't have a growth mindset. Like if you're a scientist, you should like have a growth mindset. There's no point in wanting to learn more about the observable universe and like the fundamentals of everything if you're not willing to have an open-minded view of everything. That kind of defeats the purpose of being a scientist.
Could possibly be making any sense. But of course, that wasn't a discussion. I could not get this person to discuss what was so wrong. What do you think a Sean Carroll, and I'm using him as a stand-in for all these Evo-Devo people who seem to think that they've got it all figured out, what would he say your mistake is? Because I'm sure you've thought about that. Where are you going wrong according to the conventional wisdom?
Well, let me just say that I know Sean Carroll. Sean Carroll is a friend of mine, but from his review, he reviewed the book for Science magazine. His objections to it were simply wrong. He talked about, I pointed out in the book how protein binding sites would be very difficult to get by random mutation in natural selection. And he thought, well, this would be easy. All you have to do is make 2 amino acid changes or 1 amino acid change, and you have a brand new binding site. And
No,
but you can't do that. And what one sees when one looks at
It's funny how he believed that, but even smartest people can believe the wrong things. It's just unfortunate.
results, such as the evolution of malaria in the wild, is that his imagined new protein binding sites never show up. And neither do they show up in experimental evolutionary laboratories when people are growing bacteria and trying to make them change. So all of his objections were easily answered. The big problem I had with the review was the tone of scorn, as you said. The tone of scorn, oh, okay, but to deny that Darwinism has these problems, it's kind of sticking your head in the sand.
Yes. How do people understand the role of randomness and chance?
I'm a religious guy, but I used to think Darwinian evolution was true. It wasn't until about 20 years ago, when I was 36 at the time, that I decided Darwinian evolution didn't do everything. I just don't think it explains the data. I'm not trying to justify belief in God or any such thing. I'm a biochemist. I want to know where these complex molecular machines came from, and it sure doesn't look like they came.
Abe, that's where you and Michael Behe have in common, like both biochemists.
Yeah.
From the Darwinian process, and from everything I can tell, they have properties that are very similar to design systems in our own world, and so I just think it's a good hypothesis.
It's an achingly urgent question. I cannot get enough of it. You know what? I'm going to become a biochemist. I almost mean that. I'm going to start at the very beginning and get a degree because I want to work on this. It would be so interesting if it really turned out that we hit the wall that you're talking about. You have convinced me completely that the basic Darwin with the beard story, the random mutation, that won't do. And people who are going to scoff at your work, I don't think that they're reading you carefully enough. It sounds like the people.
What?
Ben asked for a pause.
Yep.
Yeah, I was just thinking, maybe Abe, you should contact the guy that hosts the podcast.
Yeah. I'm out there.
We can all
See if I can
I could maybe add him on my LinkedIn if I can find his account, and we could ask for a Zoom interview.
That's great, yeah.
But I'd say that we'd have to all be prepared with notes, and yeah, I think it'd be
Yeah, you
interesting.
could
If we,
again,
good.
yeah,
Michael Behe, be great to have you.
Michael Behe,
Ask some
if you're watching
questions.
this.
A lot of people would watch.
Just get a better
It
perspective on that.
would be shown to many schools or interview, so just putting it out there. Want to come out.
Because we know this video seems old, so Michael Behe might have new information that can furthermore support his theory.
Yeah.
People who are not thinking about what you're saying. And I regret it because I really do believe The Edge of Evolution is one of the most important books I have read in my entire life. And I hope that other people will actually take the book and read it all the way through.
A lot of people object to evolution because of their religious values, but you don't have to. You can object to evolution or Darwinian evolution simply on scientific grounds, and that's what I'm trying to do. And as you've read, there's plenty of reason to do so.
Wow, I chose the wrong career. Thank you very much, Michael. This was absolutely illuminating.
My pleasure. Thank you, John.
And I hope we talk again someday.
Just a great summary of Michael Behe saying that he's doing it for the reason of science. He's not doing this in like a religious perspective, but he just wants to get the scientific perspective. And you can be an atheist and still believe in what he's saying.
Yeah. So
Just like a brilliant speaker.
yeah, he's gifted.
He brings like humor in it, even,
Yeah.
everything he says is just powerful. Like,
And he
you
is
put a quote
open
on
to
everything he says.
he is open to objections, which I like about it. He's not like the scientist where the guy on the left gave an example where he just completely did not want to talk about it. But he's open, with a growth mindset that he's willing to learn. So I think that's required. As I said,
Yeah,
keeping
I mean,
like
there's an interesting
scientists or
contrast. I
biochemists.
think compared to other scientists, who believe that there's only one viewpoint that you have to accept. He definitely gives I don't know.
Yeah, so I just think that was really insightful, and I mean it is an older video, so there's probably more stuff that we could be discussing
There's
about.
probably more videos. Alright. There's probably more videos that Michael Behe has that he posted more recently that we can react to.
Yep.
And, if you guys want us to react to anything or just talk about it on this podcast, you can just type it in the comments what you want us to watch next, whether it be anything from sports to another Michael Behe video.
Yep.
I'm always open to that.
I hope.
I'd
I
like to
hope.
watch another Michael Behe.
Oh, Michael
Behe
Behe sees this.
Yeah, I'm just,
Any field you can just comment down. Like it really does not matter what. Yeah.
All right, thank you, tuners, for tuning in and making it this far into the discussion. All right, guys. So, you guys have
What should we
any?
call our fans? What should we call our fans?
I think.
the captain just said.
Yeah, captain.
All right. So, I hope you guys enjoyed. Please hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoyed the topic, and let us know your comments. I'm open to anything. We're all open to anything. If you have any objections or any things we should look deeper into, let us know. We might do a video on
Or
it.
counter views.
Yeah. All right. So, if you also want to join the next Zoom meeting, let us know. We can maybe work something out. And thank you guys for tuning in, and see you in the next video.
And thank you, Michael Behe.
Thank you, Michael Behe.